"Hey, Josh," said someone, and he turned around and saw it was Abby. Abby was actually his fiancée. They had been dating since they first started college together for about almost 2 years at this point. They actually got engaged after being together for about 1 year. He took her out to a nice restaurant in town and proposed to her, and she said yes immediately. They actually known each other since they went started the same college around the same time. But it was something about his family lifestyle that would eventually prevent him to bring Abby back home. Because when she asked him if it was possible to see his parents, since he was the only child, and he said it is complicated, he said to her when they first started dating. Turns out that Josh's parents are very strict, that they wouldn't even allow him to have any such romantic relationship with anyone until he's finished college and have established a good career. But despite that, even though back in high school, sure, he did have a lot of crushes on different girls, but none of them could even work out. Because if his parents found out, they probably would made him go be homeschooled instead of go directly to school. So he didn't want to make his parents upset. But now when he was in college, in a different state, he could be dating girls at any time he wanted. But he wasn't even expected to fall in love with just one particular girl when he just first started college. Abby, though. Abby was around the same age as him, and she was from a different state, and her parents were not like strict as Josh were. They in fact very accepted Josh as her boyfriend and later her fiancé. Even her younger brother, who's still in high school, very much looked up to Josh, saw him as a big brother. Abby's parents adored Josh. He was a true gentleman. He was very much honest about his true intention with her, and when he did ask her out for the first time, it took about a few weeks until he did ask her out. And he didn't expect that she would say yes immediately though, but she did. Because it turns out she had heard some stories about him that he was a true gentleman, always helped her around for his friends with some homeworks or even something like that. And that was the things that attracted her towards him. Not only that because also that he was a very good looking man, a young guy, but he just had a strong wish that he just could bring her home to meet his parents so they can see how kind she is. But he, despite that, knowing how his parents are so strict, it was impossible. But at least Abby's family and her friends actually accepted it. He just wished that he could just bring her home one of the just for the summer so that she could spend time with his parents and maybe other people of his family. But no matter what he just wished, it was impossible. "So you're going to for the first class?" she asked. Yeah. Uh, since summer break is just only about 2 weeks from now, are you going home?" "Yeah. I'm actually going to spend most of the summer with my family." "Oh, I know you wish that you could just come along, but you know how my parents are." "Yeah, I just wish they could understand this. Even it is now when we are engaged of all." "Yeah, I know. Even back in high school, I wasn't even allowed to even have any relationship at all," he said. And he had mentioned that even when they first started dating, and at first when he mentioned this to her on their first date, she first believed that he was just joking, that his parents were so strict. But when she saw that he wasn't joking, she really saw that he was serious and understood that he may not been able to tell his family about him being dating a girl. So each time when his parents came over to see him at the college, he pretended that Abby was just a female friend of his. That was something he was very much allowed to have, because he was allowed to have female friends but not been able to date them at all. So even if it would date a girl, he would have to be in secret. Even Abby felt a little bit hurt that she had to pretend to be his close friend, not his fiance. But he just hoped one day that they could really telling his family all about this. So you're going to be home for whole summer? Um, Hopefully not. I mean, I wish I'd be able to come over to, spend time with you, maybe your family for the summer as well. Yeah, I wish so too. So Abby gave him a kiss on the cheek and they both went to their different classes. But during those next 2 weeks, Abby and Josh spent a lot more time together since they won't be able to see each other for at least several weeks. But as the summer break came around, Abby was very sad to see Josh to drive home, and it was several hours of driving. But when he went on the stop, sometimes he did call her or text her, saying just informing her how the trip was going back home. But when he was home, his parents was overjoyed to see him. His father was actually working a very much of well-known business in his hometown. This business was just a finance support company, and his family was really wealthy. But despite this, he didn't felt uncomfortable at home anymore. Ever since he went to college, he had actually put a lot of his stuff, of some of his personal items, in a storage, since he told his parents now, like, when I'm finished college, I may move out to find my own place, and you can use my old room as a guest room if you have any other relatives coming over, which his parents didn't hesitate to say no about. After all, they wanted them that he wanted to establish his own personal life and to find a good career and all that. His father and his mother wanted him to either found two careers, one as a doctor or as a business, like his father. Even though that he didn't want to have any such ideas, he didn't want to have any of those ideas as careers. But he still picked business classes, and since his own dream that he wanted to be a carpenter. He was actually quite skilled in carpenting ever since his grandfather, before he passed away years earlier, who taught him how to be skilled, how to be working on it. And that was something that his parents did not mind at all, because they thought that it's just a hobby. But since he was very close to his grandfather, he told them that maybe one day he could work as a carpenter. But when his parents found out, they were not happy about this idea. But they first believed that maybe this was just a childhood dream, and maybe that he will move on from this dream and maybe find some different things. But according to Josh, though, when he told this to Abby, she was actually supportive of his dream. But she said having going to business class may be an advantage. It will teach him how to provide him for himself, and also and maybe as how to operate his own company or maybe his own small business. And he actually agreed on that. And when his parents found out that he had chosen business, they were actually very, very thrilled, especially his father, because he had hoped maybe one day that his son Josh will eventually apply for the same place as he's working, and maybe that he could maybe rise in ranks and be a businessman or something in the same company. But this summer would be changing a lot for his life, because when he came home, his parents was over thrilled to see him, even though they had FaceTime a couple of times when he was in college. But it was not like the same for them, or at least for his parents. His mother always hugged him and gave him the biggest hugs ever, and he came home around in the early afternoon, since it was several hours of driving, since he had to stop overnight because he didn't want to drive at sleeping. But That same evening, Josh's parents announced that they have actually a special guest coming over for dinner. And he is first believed maybe that was his boss, his dad's boss, coming over for dinner, which has happened before. But when he saw that was not his father's boss, but was actually a young girl around the same age as him. Son, this is my boss' daughter, Julia. She's staying here for dinner tonight. Oh, hello? Hi, she said with a smile. Well, why don't we go to the table and wait for dinner to be finished? You two can have a small conversation together to get to know each other. But what Josh didn't know that his parents actually had wished and hoped that he would eventually fall in love with his father's boss daughter Julia, and that marry into her family, who was also quite wealthy. But he wasn't even aware of this. He just thought maybe that when he found out that was is actually that when he found out that was his dad's boss's daughter, he just first believed maybe that they invited Julia to just be nice to her. So after all, her father had been invited to dinner a couple times before, even before when he went to college. So they were just small talking, and even though Julia herself was not even aware about this, but when they have a dinner, they were just small talking, and Josh's dad mentioned that Julia are going to be a nurse, and she was actually skilled, but there was something that she wanted to be. And when he mentioned, son, I'm very happy that you met Julia because, me, my boss, and myself, we actually had talked about how about maybe you and Julia would end up being, start dating and all that. And then when Josh just heard that, and he's like, Dad, me dating? But you have been telling me many times before I wasn't even allowed to be dating even before I finished college. And now you expect me dating your boss' daughter, without being informing me before this? Are you crazy, Dad? But, son, listen. I know your method is shocking, but think about it. She is beautiful, she is young, and she's around the same age as you. And I know that you're well shocked, but at least get to know her. She's very kind. Josh didn't know exactly else what to say, so he just nodded and enjoyed the dinner in silence. After that, he could even see that Julia was also a bit surprised about this because she was genuine. She didn't even know anything about it. But after dinner, Josh's dad went out to their bedroom to get something, while Josh went to in the kitchen while his mother was taking care of the dishes. Mom, is Dad really serious about this? Of course, honey. Your dad won't just want the best for you. I mean, Julia is a very kind girl, and she is very beautiful. Don't you think so? And he looked out at her from the kitchen and saw that she was sitting at the table, still felt a little bit uncomfortable. Well, yeah, she is, but so what's the pretty problem? Well, first of all, Mom, you and Dad had told me I'm not allowed to be dating until after I finish college. But even if I did dating her before college, even finished college, how would you even react to that, though? Well, we may have been taken as by surprise, but we don't understand, though. That statement made him really stunned. Because both his parents has always said to him, you're not allowed to be dating any girl until you finish college. You hear me, son? And he always said yes and nodded. But there was something about this particular statement that he didn't even expect to believe in anymore. After dinner, after that Julia had left, Josh's parents were in the living room just watching some TV while he was on his own bed, just trying to process that was just been happening for the past hour or two. And he was really shocked that his parents had made this statement that they were trying to make him dating his own dad's boss daughter, even despite they had statement before that he was not allowed been doing any such dating until he's finished college. And that brought him to Abby. He decided to FaceTime her on a call, and she was happy to see him, but she immediately noticed that something was wrong. Josh, is something wrong? Josh was silent for a moment, but he said, something did happen about an hour ago. Oh, what happened? Um, it's a little bit hard to explain, but you can tell me. You know that you can tell me anything, right? Yeah. Um. Okay. Um. My parents had invited someone for dinner, and well, is that something unusual? No, it isn't. Um. It's just that my parents had invited my dad's boss' daughter for dinner. Oh, has that happened before? No, mostly my dad's boss have been invited, but I can't see for any reason. But the shocking is that they invited her to convince me in dating her. That statement made Abby stunned. Wait, are you serious? Yes, I was really stunned as you are. And even expecting my own parents had said many times before to me I wasn't even allowed to be dating at any time before until I finished college. Even back in high school, one was even allowed. Abby was really stunned about this. And Josh, she could see that he was even very little bit disturbed about this revelation about the news. So, what are you going to do though? Well, I'm still gonna be pretending that I'm dating her, would at least get to know her in person. Even that did make her feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, I wish that you just could tell your parents about who you are with already. Yeah, but my parents are so strict that they don't even want to believe me anymore. So, yeah, understandable. But his parents were so strict all of this. And they actually small talk for the rest of the half hour. But the rest of that night, Josh could still, even believe what his parents told him. But he tried to process all this big, overwhelming news. But the next few days, he did meet up Julia at a cafe in town for a small talk. They could just get to know each other a little bit better. But he didn't know had any intention to make any such romantic involvement with her, since he was already happily engaged. But when they were just talking, Julia even revealed to him that she already had a boyfriend. She which has also been dating, and even though her parents were strict, but maybe not as much as his own, Abby was, well, at least could have been happy to know that though. But Julia, she explains that since she had a boyfriend, but she was also going to this medical school that she's going to be a nurse, because that was actually her choice. Even her parents were hoping that she will choose a very successful career. But she did, eventually though. But even over time, when he explained to her that he didn't mind that she told him but she has a boyfriend. And he also told her that he didn't have any intention to try to be in any romantic involvement with her, but she appreciated because she loved her boyfriend so much. And it's such having this big being forced to be dating a girl that he barely even knew. But he at least was okay to get to know her a little bit better, which she didn't mind. But the rest of the summer, though, Josh spent a lot more time with Julia to get to know her, but in only as a friend, of course. But when it was only like 3 weeks left of the summer break, he made this announcement to his parents that he was going back to college. But since they both his parents knew that the college was not supposed to be starting until the next 3 weeks, they asked him why the reason he go back so early. Well, the reason why I'm actually going back is I just want to spend time with some of my friends. Oh? Well, since when college starts back together, things are going to be a lot more, you know, challenge. Challenge, the tests, the exams and all that. And all the focus is going to take a lot more time from that. And his parents actually accepted that. So he packed some stuff and actually drove all the way back, but instead to college. He drove all the way to Abby's home. Abby was really happy to see him. She hugged him and gave him a big kiss when he arrived at their driveway. And her younger brother walked up to him and says, "Hey, big bro, you're finally back." "Hey, little bro." And they gave each other a high five, and he was just happy to be at another place where he could be just being himself and also being accepted. So the rest of the 3 weeks, he did spend a lot of time with Abby and her family, like going on dates, even have barbecue at their place. But he did spend the time with some other friends from college, though, which wasn't a big lie. But then college started back up again. But a lot of things that was different about this. Having this big revelation about him to be told about him a few weeks earlier by his own parents that they were hoping that he would start dating his dad's boss daughter in order to get maybe had a better connection with this finance business world. But despite that, he was just really happy that he was now back in college, several miles away from his hometown, away from his parents' strict lifestyle. Here, he could be just being open about himself, at least be walking around with Abby as her fiance without any watchful eyes from his parents. But as time went on, Abby was getting a little bit worried about since he had even told his parents about this, but she knew the reason why. But she was just wondering, Josh, are you going to tell your parents anything about us? Us being engaged and all that? I know that I asked you before. It's just, I don't want to bother you with a question. I know. It's just having this being told about me supposed to be dating my own dad's boss's daughter, all that. It's a lot to handle. Believe me. Oh yeah, I do believe you. I mean, I would have felt the same thing as if my dad had forced me to do the same thing. But yeah, I know. But believe me, none of this is not gonna change anything between us. Never. I know. And the rest of the summer and the fall was going really well until one day when Josh received a call from his mom. She informed him that they are coming over for a visit for only like for 2 days. And he was surprised when they mentioned this, but at least he was informing Abby so that they pretend just to be friends. But when his parents did show up at college, they had another surprise. They in fact had brought with them Julia. He even asked his parents why they brought Julia. Well, son, we just wanted her to come along and then to see how college is for you and maybe get you to get to know spend some more time together. That alone made him feel a bit uncomfortable. But he could even see that Julia was also uncomfortable being around a guy that they She has been forced to be dating. But even despite this, Abby, who is also around, used to pretend to be his friend and not his fiance. But despite this, he couldn't just he could just been telling them right then, but he chose not to. But they were almost caught by his own mother. Since his mom just walked in while he and Abby were just watching some TV together, it, it was almost like they'd been being caught. Oh, Abby, I didn't know you were here. Where is Julia? Oh, Julia decided that she just wanted to take a walk. Abby came by and I was just watching some TV and, well, just watched some TV. And and his mom saw that he was watching just a movie on the TV. It was just this comedy movie. So she didn't see any reason to be suspicious about this. But it was the only time that one almost been caught. But after that his parents left, and that went along with Julia. Abby told him that she doesn't want to, but still pretending to play that he is just his friend. And he nodded and said that, I know that. I really wish that we can just pretend to be nothing more than ourselves. But I tell you, I will tell them before we finish college. Are you promise? You have my word. And he always kept his words, no matter what he promised. But the rest of the fall, a lot, things started getting out bit more as normal. Having exams, a lot of tests, and he even went out with some friends to spend time, but also went on dates with Abby. But a lot of things did happen though. Because just about before winter break, he was expecting to go back home to spend the Christmas with his parents, but when his dad informed him that his dad and his mom will not be home for Christmas, they will be on Hawaii for vacation. And that meant that he could spend the whole Christmas holiday with Abby and her family, which he didn't mind. And in fact, that was something that both really looked up to for once. So, just before and after the winter vacation started, they actually just went back to her family's home. Even on the holiday, Josh was sitting in the living room playing games with Abby's younger brother on the Xbox. But it was still a lot of things on his mind. What is his parents forced to be dating Julia, and all this stuff at school, and so a lot of things went on his mind. But at least he was with Abby for this Christmas, and in fact, he was just happy to be there. And even went back to college was back to normal again. But something would eventually happen. Around spring, just only like a few weeks after Valentine's Day, Josh had asked Abby if she wanted to get married. They were supposed to get married sometimes after college. But he just wanted to be with her forever. And for some unknown reason though, she said yes. So she went along with her mother to find this perfect dress. And while her dad helped with Josh to find this perfect tuxedo. And they decided to have go to this courthouse to have this wedding. So they had invited just Abby's parents, her younger brother, and her best friend as a bridesmaid, and a close friend to be Josh's best man. Even though despite he just wished that his parents can also have been there. But knowing how strict they were, it would be almost impossible. Because they wouldn't have even accepted that he's now getting married. And he knew that that Abby's parents knew that he wasn't just getting married now to be forced into marriage. No, he wanted to get married. And after the marriage, They were just happy, but they decided to go their honeymoon after the after they finished college, which they didn't mind. They had to wait 2 more years. But that time, he actually went back to his hometown to spend time with his parents for the summer, and while Abby, with her parents, went to see some other relatives in different out of town. So even though that they did a lot of FaceTime all this time, but it was a lot of things that in his mind that he just wished that he could just tell his parents. But during this summer, he did spend some time with Julia as planned for his parents to be believing that they were in fact dating. He had already been informing that summer he told Julia that he was in fact now married. He used to be engaged, but now he got married just before summer break. She was a little bit surprised, but she was supportive and just wished him good lucks and good wishes that hoped that it could last. He thanked her. But as the time went on, he was almost caught when he was doing FaceTime with Abby. But luckily though, his dad was too busy to even notice that he was actually on the FaceTime with Abby. And that was another time he was so close to being detected. But Abby and Josh were just happy that didn't happen though. But a lot of things happened between that. When they went back to college, now they were happily married. They still were happy together. They went still on days together, on date nights and all that. But Josh maintained his promise to his parents, always to focus on his studies. But it in fact happened. They had asked him. It did in fact happen. They asked him if he went out partying, and he said, "It happens that I do party, but not like go to the clubs or anything, drinking, smoking, or anything like that. Just hang out with some friends at my own room, having pizza, watching some movie, celebrating that we finished on tests or exams, all that." And that was something his parents accepted, which at least that was not that type of party they have feared that he would do. But he told his parents that he was not that type of person to just go out partying like that at all. He just wished that he could finish college and move on to the next step in life to be finding a career and all that stuff. But as time went on, Josh was really happy to be happily married with Abby. But it was still deep down in his mind that his parents would be very much against this new life for him. But even though he didn't care about that anymore, even Abby herself was just happy to be married with Josh, even though she knowing that his family would not accept this. But as long as he's happy with Abby, he didn't care what his parents would say or even do about it. But eventually, he knew that he would have to tell his family about this new big news. But both Abby and Josh had decided to wait until like after the college, or maybe during the same day when they finished college. But over time, during the rest of that, when summer came around, he went back to his hometown to spend time with his parents, even though he wished that he could just spend time with Abby. But it was nothing else he could do about it. And even though he did keep up this charade that he was dating Julia, even on his dad's request, hoping that he would eventually fall in love with that Julia for most of that. But not even at all. Because that summer, when Josh was spending time with Julia, he actually told her that he got married this spring with his fiance. She was a bit surprised, but she was at least happy, and and told him with good luck and wish happy happy life with her, and he said thanks. But even though when that summer he was FaceTiming with Abby, sometimes when I was at home, and he was almost caught when his dad was just walking by his door, was open halfway, and he was on the phone, and Josh had almost forgot about the closing door, but his dad was very much too occupied looking at some documents that he had brought home from work, so he didn't even notice that, though, which was the second closest event that he could have been caught. But even when he went back to college after summer break was over, he wished that he still could have been just telling his parents. But he was just happy though. Even when his parents had even asked him when he was in college if he ever went out partying, he did tell them that he did party, but not as much they go to like nightclubs or the bars or anything. He he only invited a few friends to his dorm room to watch movies and having pizza, just that type of celebration of the party. He was never much as a party person at all. And that was not because of his parents' strict lifestyle. He knew that some people can be a little bit crazy if they went on partying or something. But he was just happy now that he's not that type of person. And that his parents also were happy about. But during his exams and all that and tests at school, there was still just one thing on his mind: his parents. Especially now he was married with Abby. He didn't know how his parents would even react. But even though that Abby knew that he was concerned how his parents would react if they found out if they were even been dating him, all of this. But Abby told Josh that no matter what happens, they will always be there for each other. Even if his family disowned him, cutting out from the family will, all that. But he mentioned this to Abby once, that his dad told him once, if he was found out being going against the family's his parents' words, like being dating or doing something that they thought was respectful to his family's standards, they would have kicked him out, cut him out of the will, and leaving him unsupported by anything, by any financial means. But that doesn't even mean to him a thing, in fact. He didn't even care about that anymore. Now that he has Abby in his life, and that is all that mattered to him. Being with the one he loved the most of all the whole world. But even despite this, a lot of stuff happened in his life. He really wished that he just could been with Abby for the rest of his life. But that was even before they got married that spring. But knowing it was only like more years left of college, Abby asked him, "Are you going to tell your parents all about us? You know, being married and all that?" "Yes, I think it's a time that I tell them. It's about time of telling them because it's been long enough." "I agreed," said Abby. Even though they both decided to wait till like when they finished college, which were about 2 years from now on, from now. But during that time, every single time when he was on the holiday breaks, he either spent it with his parents or he spent it with Abby and her family. But when he were back home, he spent some time with Julia in an act to make sure that his parents would make any suspicious about anything. But he knew that one day soon he had to tell his parents. But he wasn't really sure how any of those things would happen. But as 2 years later on passed, It was about time when it was time for Josh, Abby was to finish college. And when there was only like 2 more weeks left, Josh practiced in front of the mirror like in acting how to how, the best way to telling his parents how he has been dating Abby and now they're married and all that for almost 3 years. But no matter what he'd said in front of the mirror, even though Abby saw that, but both knew the scenario or the outcome or the response for any of those are unpredicted. Even though they could almost predict that his parents would freak out, probably angry, and disown him from the family, but that was the only scenario that both could imagine could happen. But other than that, he didn't even care anymore. On the day when they finished college, he had invited both his parents, and Abby had invited her parents and her younger brother. After ceremony, after he got his diploma, he was just talking with Abby while her family was on a distance just talking to someone else. But then, congratulations, son, said his dad. Thank you, dad. Appreciate it. So, son, now that you finished college, are you coming back home to start working in the business with your dad? You know, like a family tradition? Um, I'm sorry to inform you, Dad, but I'm not. What? What do you mean? I thought you probably that you wanted to be. No, that's your dream, Dad. But I have my own dream. Oh? What do you have in mind to do? Well, I'm actually planning to open my own business. Oh, you will. That's surprising. Well, you did tell me to take this finance classes, economics class, and stuff like that, so I did. And that actually taught me how to operate a successful business. Um, so what did you mind the kind of business? And he was silent for a moment. And Abby just stood there, looked at him, trying to be supportive. Carpeting, he said, and was silent for a moment. Despite all the talk around them, but it felt like it was in silence. Carpeting. Are you kidding me? No, Dad. I'm not kidding. You really are expecting me to believe my son to be carpenter? Dad, you are not going to be a carpenter. My father taught you how to be a carpenter. I first believed that was just a phase and maybe as a hobby. But having it as a career, that is unbelievable. You're not going to be that. Dad, this is my future career to choose, not yours. You are my son, and you will do what I say to you to be. Know that. Listen, I'm done. What are you saying? His parents just looked at him, and both were stunned over all this statement. To be honest, Dad, I had something to tell you. Abby is not my friend. She is my wife. Your wife? Heard his dad and mom said at the same time. Yes, we have been married for since 3 years. And I'm not saying that I don't regret that at all. And to be a fact that you and mom has never been like any good parents yourself. What did you just say? His dad said a little bit angrily. You heard me. You and mom was never there for me. And in fact, you didn't even be willing to do anything to raise me. Because when I was younger, when I asked you if we could spend any time, like, go fishing or play catch, but you said no, because I was busy with work or business trip to plan. The same thing as for mom. You never were even there for me at all. How dare you? Well, Dad, it is the truth. Me and Abby are married, but you and Mom, you never was never there when I was growing up. All was more busy, what most important was your work. And in fact, when I was in school, when I was in a school play, I invited you to be there, but you never even showed up. When I was in college, in high school, I was in the soccer team. I had many important games, but I invited you to come over to see it, but you never even showed up. And all you have an excuse. Work, 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 meetings, all kinds of stuff. And I got tired. And now you really expect me to believe any such things that you're telling me. And in fact, I say my grandparents was then more like my own parents than you two are. How dare you to say that? His mom said angry. It's the truth, Mom. My grandparents raised me better than any of you two have done. Grandma Sally taught me how to cook, how to be independent, and my grandfather taught me how to be as independent person, and also taught me how to fix things if they broke, including how to fix a car. And in fact, that reminds me, when your parents passed away, you didn't even show up at any of their funerals. And how do you think your own parents would have felt that only son never showed up at their own funeral? And all your excuse, work, 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 all the kinds of stuff. And I do think your parents were even better parents than you have ever been or ever will be. How dare you? I don't care what your dad did say about me, Mom, or Dad. I don't care. And in fact, I'm happily married to Abby. And how do you support your? How will you be able to support and start your own business when we will cut off your will? Her family, of course. As her family would even afford that. Her father is a successful banking director. Her father, yes. Her family is quite wealthy, like our own. And that is the reason, not the reason why I married her, because of being part of her wealthy family. No. I don't care about any money at all that. But you seems to only want me to marry Julia and start a family with her and all kinds of stuff. You almost want to plan my whole future in advance without asking me what I wanted personally, he said angrily back. And for that, you told me I was not allowed to be dating anyone before I finished college, and that you would have been disowned me from the family and cut me out of the family. Well, I have only one thing to say to you. Cut off me to the family will. If you do, I don't care. I don't want to be involved with being your son anymore. And then he grabbed Abby's hand and just walked away. And his dad said, "Fine, leave, but you're not my son anymore. And don't come back home. You're not allowed." And that, he was fine. Abby smiled at him and said, "You did great. Thanks. I feels much better now that I confronted him about this." Yeah, but at least you have a better future now. That's true. Abby informed her father and parents what happened, and they were supportive and both said, "That's terrible, but you're always welcome back in our family. After all, we love you as you are," her mom said. And he nodded, and they also moved back. And in fact, they went to live at her parents' place. But only a few days after they finished college, Josh went back to his hometown for the last time. He went by his home and drew back to the storage unit and packed the boxes that he contained some of his last stuff from home. But then, before he left, he drove by his house and saw his parents was outside, and they saw him. And he only said a few words. "I'm here to pick up my last stuff, and this is the last time you ever see me or hear from me ever again. And then he just drove off. He actually felt relieved, happy inside. Now he has been confronting his parents despite what their reaction they expected to be. But when he came back to Abby's hometown, with help from her father's financial support, he opened his own small business of carpeting, and at first it did seem like wasn't going well. So he did hire a few other assistants, other people that were well trained in that business. And sure enough, only shortly afterwards, it kicked off. It started getting more calls and it's getting better and better. And the business seems to be getting better and better for each day that went on. And 2 more years passed. Abby and Josh were still very happily married, and Abby informed them they were expecting a baby next few months. Are you kidding me? He said. No. This is the amazing news ever. Abby and Josh was just happy that they were now going to be a parents, but especially to a baby girl. Josh and Abby agreed to name her Sally after his grandmother. And a few months later, they had their beautiful baby girl. Abby felt so happy, but Josh, he felt even more happier. And he made a promise himself that he would never be anything like his own parents. And in fact, when in the hospital, he took a picture with himself and Abby and their daughter Sally, and sent the picture to his pet, his own mom, even despite he told them that he's not going to have any contact with them. But he just wanted to tell them that he said, "This is your only granddaughter named Sally." And also mentioned it later on that he said, "Despite this, you are not allowed to meet her ever." He was still angry about towards them, but Abby had told him just move on and hopefully have that. And he did. But his parents never even tried to reach out to them, even after they found out they have a granddaughter. But when Sally was only like 5 years old, Sally, Abby, and Josh were expecting another baby. And in fact, they had a baby boy, which they named Henry. Henry was actually his grandfather's name. And since he looked up to his grandparents so much, and naming his son after his grandfather was something that Abby supported. And the business, though, it went perfectly well. Now not only being married, but this most amazing woman in the world, but having this amazing daughter and son too. Even though his parents were informed about a son too, but still no response from any of that. And Abby and Josh, they didn't even care anymore. Josh said, "I don't care if they even reach out to me anymore." But on Henry's 2-year birthday, there was a knock on the door. And Abby opened, it's like, "Welcome. Josh, you may have to come to see this." Josh left the room and went, "What is it, honey?" "Mom, what are you doing here?" It turns out that Josh's own mother showed up. "Hi, Josh, is this okay if I come in?" "I don't know that. What are you doing here? And what is that?" It turns out his dad passed away but what a year earlier in heart attack. "Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. But what does it brings you here though?" It turns out that she had regretted how she felt and how she treated her own son, and she wished and asked if it was possible for her to be involved in her own grandkid's life. She wanted to be a good grandmother, and she wanted to rebuild her relationship with Josh and try to make it better. Even though that Josh was very much hesitated to even believe any single word, but Abby told him to listen. And she could sense that his mother was very much genuine or even honest. Alright, you can come in, he said, even though he still hesitated to even allowing her to be there. But that was probably the best choice he did, because ever since that his mother met Henry and Sally, she was complete opposite. She even started changing her personality, and also shortly afterwards, she moved to the new town so that she could be closer to her grandkids. And eventually, he forgave her. But it took him a little bit longer to forgive his dad, because what his mother revealed to him, sometimes after that, almost like after they found out they had a granddaughter, his mom was very happy to be a grandparents, but his dad was very first hesitant to even to have any such contact, and in fact he even forbade his own mom to even reach out to Josh and to have any strong contact. But having found out that he had a son later named after his grandfather, Josh's dad started to question his own choice not to be having any contact with his own son. And when he found out, he was many times had his phone out with his phone number on it, ready to call Josh, but never did. And even on his deathbed just before he passed away, he confronted, or at least revealed to Josh's mom, he felt so stupid to have said that to his own son and how he treated him. And he wished that he could have been much better father than any reason other that he could just wished he could go back in time, change that all happened, and had a better relationship with his own son. And Josh at first didn't know if he's gonna believe those words, but he eventually did. And he eventually forgave his dad, even though that he was already gone. But his relationship with Abby had always been a strong, solid for him. She was the rock in his life, the light, the joy. But having Sally and Henry in his life brought even a lot more joy. But even having his mother back in his life, he started to feel the regret that he said those words about his parents. But in a way, he was right though. Because his parents, they weren't even never there for him. They didn't basically raise him at all. They were only at home at nights or in the evenings when they came home from work, but that was pretty much it they even did. There was literally his grandparents who babysat him until when he was 14, when he considered them as more as his parents than his grandparents. But after all of this, Josh, he didn't regret any of his emotions anymore. He just wished that his life could have been much better if his parents was different, even when he was young. But he realized if his life would have been a lot different, there's only a chance that he still would have ended up being with Abby and having this amazing family, but he wasn't really sure. But at least he's happy to have met Abby and eventually got married with her and have this amazing family and have this successful career. Even after all this had what he gone through, he's just happy that this later outcomes turned out to be. He was just happy after all of this. And for that, he doesn't regret a single thing about it. And this is how Josh and Abby found a true love, got a big family together. The end.